Welcome to part one. Let's continue where we left off in the previous video. So let me open the application, right? So I put it in the music folder just so that it'll be easy to navigate to. So I'm gonna run it and then I also run my service. So we're still doing the service, right? So the service application, the WCF service application. So let's wait on that to fully load. So it's loading the project solution. Okay. So remember where we left off, we're discussing the database, right? That a database, when you when you link it to SQL classes, right? It means that the tables themselves, it generates what is called a class, right? For each table. And then each column in the table will act as like a member of that class. And remember, when each column in the table acts as a member of that class, all of the all of the information, right, or all of the members of the class will be made public. I'll show you right now that it actually does that. So I'm going to do this. So we need to create our methods, right? So for each method, we need to create an operation contract, right? Which just simply says that this service of mine can be you can interact with it through these methods. So that means my client, any client who wants to make use of this service can make use of this services functions or the services methods, right? So let's um let's start with something basic, right? With adding the products. So let's create a function that adds the products. So with the function that adds the products, there's three things that are possible when it comes to adding a product. That's going to determine what return type we're going to use for our function. So, like I said, it's going to depend what return type we're going to use, right? Based on the number of things that are possible. So when it comes to adding a product can either already exist, right? And if it already exists, um, so you'll see that we can't use things like Boolean here because there's gonna be more than two possible events, right? That can occur. So the product already exists. That's the first sort of like probability, and then the product. Let me see. The product does not. What is this? The product does not exist. Yeah, does not exist, which is what we want. So this is what we want over here. This is what we want. And then the other thing is when you try to add the product to the database, some internal error, right, might occur. So as you can see, there's how many possibilities here? There's three. So we cannot possibly use a Boolean to return this. What we could do is we can use an integer because we can return multiple integers to dictate what state it is in, right? It's up to you. Remember the most favorable situation, what we want it to do, what is expected. Remember your C++ class, right? Computer science 1A and 1B. You always had like that return zero, right? Remember that return zero. The zero means that everything was successful. That's what the zero means to the operating system. So when we have a product, and remember the product needs to not exist before adding it. If it didn't exist and we successfully added the product, then we should return zero. And then if the product already existed, I'll just return maybe a one. And then if there was some error, I'll return maybe -1. So that's pretty much the flow behind it, right? So obviously I can't use a Boolean because you see there's multiple cases that needs to be handled. You could also return a char That's up to you. So I'm gonna return an int, right? And then I'm gonna say add product. Right. So basically this this first part, right? The iService1.cs, you can view it as like your header file in C++, right? And then when you go to this side, when you click the .svc one, this is like your .cpp, the implementation file, where you implement the methods. So there's our add product function. So there's many ways we can add the product. We can take in a whole instance of product, right? Because remember that what I said, that when you link into SQL classes, it created a class with that. You see, it's even telling you that this is a class. To show you that this is a class, let me show you something advanced. So let me right click on this. So you see, there is partial class product. It created a product based on what? dbo.product, which means it's the product, it's a table. You see, it uses the link to SQL classes, right? It's linking to SQL classes. So look at all those members those columns that I have, ID, image, they're literally members of the class. Description, price, in stock. Then we have a constructor, a default constructor. So it comes pre-installed to the default constructor. Then remember what I said, with these members, right? They're both, you can both access and mutate. So it has accessors and mutators. So in C Sharp, you create what is called a get statement or a set statement. So you see it as both. So I can get the value and set it. And then we have a property method for an image too, the name, the description. Like I said, any varchar will be converted to a string. You see that all these varchars are converted to strings. And then obviously the price was an integer, so we have an int, even in stock is an int. So yeah, that's pretty much it. This is the class. Then we also have the user class based on our user table. Remember, this is what we saw when we're creating the table, dbo.user. So it's based on this user. So it made a model of a class based on the table named user. And then it used the same name of that table, which is user, to create the same class with a class with the same name as a database, as a table name called user. And it put in all the class, all the columns in our table. And then it also comes with a default constructor. And then we have all the other things. So there's many ways. So now I basically have a class named user and product. So in order to add the product, there's many ways. I could just take in an instance of a product and then create it on that side, right? On the front end or on the client side. I can do that. Or I can take the individual inputs, right? Like the thing is I forgot now because I was busy making a video for ComSci. Let me see. What inputs do you have? We have ID, which is a primary key, right? You can even see with that key icon, and it's auto incremented, meaning that it increases on its own. That means I don't have to set it. Then we're gonna have image, name, description, price, and in stock. Price and in stock are both integers, right? So you could take all of these things as parameters. There's many ways you can kill a cat, right? So I'll show you this first approach. This the one for the product might be a bit advanced. So not too advanced per se, but then you're not familiar with it yet. So I'm gonna say take in an image, take in the name of the product, and then take in the description, and then take in int the price, and then whether it is in stock or not, by default, every time we add a product, obviously we're adding a product, it means that it's now officially in stock. So that's not something that I need to take from the client. The user can't tell me, okay, the product is now in stock. You can't go to Pick and Pay as the client, you're going there to buy, but then you're dictating and telling the owners that, okay, listen here, the product is in stock. What do you mean it's in stock? You are not the owner of Pick and Pay, right? And you're not the one selling the products and dealing with all the delivery and all those things, right? You are just the client. So I can't take in int stock here. Remember, int stock just tells the it's just information that we save in our database to keep track of whether the product is in stock or not. Remember, I said you don't have to do that. So there's a trick here. Every time you add a method, right, in your sort of like your header file, every time you add your method here, you go into need to implement it this side, right? You could just copy and paste, right? But then I've noticed something. If you just copy and paste this, like you usually did in C++, copy and paste that side and then start implementing, sometimes it won't take effect. It will still put this error that you haven't implemented the function. I don't know why it does that. So what I suggest you do is you hover this error, this squiggly red line, right? Then you click show potential fixes. Then you double click implement interface. Double click, and then it's going to add all the methods that are declared only in the iService1.cs file, basically the header file, but have not been implemented this side. And then now it's time for the adding to the table, adding the product to the table, right? So before I can do that, let me see if I have secrecy.cs. So I have secrecy.cs that's there, which is fine. And then what else do I need? Um, yeah, okay. So I need a way to reference those classes, right? The classes and the database, right? So remember this data class model, it converted these tables to classes, right? So I need a way to reference these tables. So it's sort of like I need to link to these classes and then in turn link to the tables, right, inside of my database. So yeah, I'm gonna do that. So how do we do that? You just write down the name of that data class. I called mine practical P04 underscore data class. And then it's gonna append it's gonna append things, it's gonna append a data context at the end. So you see P04, you see data class, and then it's gonna append a data context at the end. And then I'm gonna call it DB. You could call it just database to reference my database, right? You don't need to write it in full. You can just say DB and then it's instantiated, right? And then it's instantiated. Then now we're gonna run the statement to add to the database. How do you do that? There's this thing in C# whereby it's like auto in C++. If you remember auto in C++, which basically means that I won't define the data type. You should pick it up and find out what data type you should use. I don't want to think about that part on trying to remember which data type should be used. So an equivalent to auto in C++, in C# is called var. Var standing for variable, right? For variable, meaning that it's going to be one value returned. Keep that in mind. So I'm going to say var, and then I'm trying to get a product, right, from the table. And because before I add a product, I need to try and get the product. If the product does exist, then I know that the product does it's already there, then there's no need for me to add the product. I'm just return. And if the product already exists, we say we're gonna return one. So we'll check that. So this thing that I'm about to do right now, it should return, I shouldn't get any product. I should get this temp prod variable should be null because we are trying to add a product. But then sometimes we might try to re-add the product that already exists. So I'm going to run an SQL statement. So I'm going to say from my table db.users, right? Mm. Okay, so I wanted to explain something, but it doesn't want me to omit that. So we're just going to create a variable called u, right? That we're going to use to reference the the user in that table within this SQL statement. So I'm going to say in for the user, right? So get a user from the, basically I'm saying from, I know it's a bit cryptic, it's weird, but I'm basically saying from my table called db.users, return me a user and store it inside this U. But then this user needs to be a specific, not user, what am I saying user? I have this tendency. Dot products, right? I'm gonna change that to a P. We'll just say prod, but then you will see that when you start naming things similar, you're gonna have issues with coming up with variable names. So I'm saying from, I know it's weird, but then I'm saying from db.products, get me a product and store it inside this P variable, right? So that product that I'm getting, I need to do a where statement. It's sort of like an if statement to say if this is the case. So where, if what, if p dot image. So I'm just gonna, since here I can't use email, what is email and password here, I'm just gonna validate all of, compare all of these parameters to see if they match with the parameters in the columns in my database. If they match exactly, all of them they match. So I'm gonna use an AND to check if all of them match. If they match, then it means the product already exists. So if it doesn't match, then it's gonna return null. So we'll see how to get that. So I can use the dot equals function, right? So I'm saying in my products table, you reference it via this variable. So p dot get the image column. You can either just say equals two equals sign like that, or you can say dot equals, call the equals function. It's up to you. So if it's equals to the image that's being passed as a parameter, oh, come on. So the image that's being passed as a parameter, there it is. If it's equal to that image, and I'm not done, I need to compare again. Dot name dot equals to the name that's being passed as a parameter. And remember, I'm using and to make sure all of these are checked. All of them are checked, right? And all of them needs to be true. So if one of them is not true, that means the product it does not exist, right? And then because we might have similar product names, but then the description and the images are different, right? So and p dot description dot equals that description that I'm taking in as a parameter, right? So let me zoom out a bit. That description that I'm taking as a parameter, and we're still not done yet. And the last thing that we need to check is the price. So p dot price dot equals to that price that I'm taking as a parameter. And then once you're done, right, you need to, what happens when you run an SQL statement? This SQL statement, right, it's going to return all the products. Remember, I'm using var for variable, meaning one value. So I need to call a function called dot first or default. So meaning get the first thing that you find in the, why is it doing that? Oh, I know I forgot something. I forgot to select it. I just ran a statement to say from my products from my products table, right? And store whatever is going to be returned inside this p variable. Where, which is basically me doing an if statement, where the image inside of the table is equals to the image that's being passed as a parameter and so forth. But then I still haven't told it to select that for me. So I need to say select that product from the table. So that select P at the end is important. And then first or default, it means the first thing that you find where this condition was true. Return that and then stop. Or if you fail to find anything, just give me the default for an object, right? Remember, this will return an object or objects. So what is the default for an object? It's null. So it is going to return the first product or null. That's what it means. Because when you run it without that first or default, it returns multiple products or multiple things. So now I'm gonna check. There's many ways you can check. I'm just gonna do this. I'm gonna check if temp prod. You can remember what I said. You can say dot equals, or you can just use two equal sign. I'll just use two equal signs here. So if temp product is equals to null, right? Remember, we expect it to be null. That means there is no product with those exact details. So the product with those exact details that is non-existent at this point. So that means we can add the product. And then I'm going to do an else. And the else part, it means that the product already exists. So if it already exists, that means we need to return and stop, because there's no need to do anything, because we're just gonna remember we'll handle the messages that will be displayed on the client side. The database, the server side, or the service application, right? All it does is just gets the information from the tables or insert information to the table. That's it. So return 1. If you remember our plan, right? If the product already exists, we said we're gonna return 1. Remember, if it's not null, remember if it needs to be null, this operation here, me trying to get that product, I need to I need to not find it in the table. So when it's null, that means it's not there. I didn't find it. It means that the product does not exist. So therefore, I can add the product. Remember how to add things, right? Remember, this is the information we are taking in, right? And remember what I said. We have a class here, and this class, okay, so let me do this. Yeah, I think this should suffice. Go to definition, right? So, okay, this is just products, right? Yeah, so this just returns products from the table, get table, which table? The product table. Return products. You see, it returns in full. It returns a whole list of products. So that's why we need to call the first or default function. So I'm looking for the classes, not this. Okay, this is not what I'm looking for. So what I'll do is I'll call it product. Remember, it's called the product is a class, right? It made a class named product. When you say products in plural, you're referring to the table itself. That's the difference. So, like I said, we have accessors and mutators, right? You see, I can call a string by this image via this image property. It's named image. And then this one is named name. This one is named description. So basically, I can initialize those variables by creating an instance of product. So let me show you. So remember how to create an instance of a class, right? It's simple. I'll just use var. You could, remember you're allowed, you can just say product because you know exactly what's going to be returned. You can say product and then product is equals to new product. And then we call the default constructor because that's the only constructor that's there. You could do this, or you could just say var. It's totally up to you. I'll just use var. Then I'm gonna say, now this product, I need to initialize it with these values. Remember, it is accessors and mutated. So I'll just say product, that object. So let me make it simpler, right? So let me do the things the way you are used to it. Let me call it obj product, like this. So that's my object, right? So obj product dot its image, set it to the image that I'm getting from the parameter. And then obj product dot its name, set it to that name that I'm getting from the parameter. And then obj product dot its description, set it to be that description that's being passed as a parameter. And then obj product dot its price, set it to be that price that's being passed by the user. And you see the color, it chooses the right color based on which one is it. Orange will be the parameters, as you can see. Those are my parameters. And then the blue one is the members of the class. Remember, it made a class based on each table. And then don't forget the in stock property, right? Or in stock variable. we need to set that to a 1 to say that, remember when adding a product, obviously we're adding the product. So basically it's like we're doing inventory, right? This thing of calculating how much adding stock, is there new stock and things like that. Since there's new stock, I'm gonna set it to 1 because that means this thing is now in stock. Remember, you don't have to do that. I'm just using this variable because it's gonna be easy for me when I get products. I'll just say get all the products that are in stock. That's it. So I won't have to rewrite something like this long thing. So now we have initialized this obj product, right? Or this new product instance or object to the information we got from the user, right? Remember what I said, every time you see DB or that variable name you've created, it references our database tables. Hence, I called it DB. If you don't want to write DB, you can write it in full and say database. That's up to you. And obviously, it's going to always add that extra letter S at the end for plural because obviously you're going to have multiple of those things. There's no way you're going to have one product. What kind of a company is that? There's no way you're going to have one user. What kind of a company is that? So I hope that makes sense. So we're gonna have the product that we've initialized it, it's done. Some people be like, whoa, the syntax, is it really like this? I saw say doing it this way. Well, it's one and the same thing. Let me show you the second approach. The C sharp is this ability, right, to say new product and then you put curly braces like this and then you terminate there. Then you access the members of the class directly by saying image is equals to image like this. And then the next thing you want to initialize, you must put a comma. Then you put in the next thing, name is equals to name, and then comma, and so on and so on, right? It's literally the same thing. I'm doing it this way so that you can find similarities between what you've been doing so far. That's why they teach you OOP, even in computer science 2A, you're teaching object-oriented programming. It's important even in databases. So just know that that's an object. We've initialized it. I'm going to use this approach to make my code easy to understand. Remember, I'll upload the code once I'm done with the session, right? With solving the problem. So we have the product, right? So what do we need to do now? We need to insert this product into our table. How do we do that? I say DB to say reference my database dot, which table am I referencing? Dot products table. Basically, this is the product table, but like I said, it puts that S as an extra to as a suffix to tell that this is a plural. You're obviously gonna have multiple of those things. And then I'm gonna say dot again. So it means for my database, go to my database, select this table named product, obvious products, just gonna add that plural there, then dot insert this information or this object or this product into the product table. So I'm gonna say dot insert on submit, right, to insert that product, which is that obj product. So now it inserts the information into the table. And then after inserting the information into the table, we need to notify our database that, listen, we've made changes to our database. Can you reflect those changes? So how do we do that? It's obviously going to throw an exception. So I'm going to use the try catch. That process will throw an exception. So I'm going to use the try catch exception EX like this. And then remember in Java, right? You always did ex.print stack trace, right? To print the stack trace. So it's similar here, but then it's a different function. It's called get base exception. Dot get base exception like this. Obviously, after we've thrown that exception, that means some error occurred. That means I couldn't tell the database to reflect those changes, right? So obviously, this means that there was an internal error in my database. It has nothing to do with me or the user. Okay, no, not really. Yeah. This is not the user's problem. This is the database problem. So I'll just return a negative number. That means something really did go wrong. And then here, this is where we tell the database to reflect those changes we made. Basically, submit the changes. So I reference my database db dot submit those changes so that they take effect, those changes, right, to my database. And then after I'm done submitting, obviously I just need to exit here, my function. So I'm going to return 0. This is when everything went successfully. I was able to submit the changes. If this function fails, right, it's going to throw an exception. Then it's going to go here and then it's going to return -1, meaning that something went wrong in our database. So this is how we add this is pretty much what we're going to do throughout. So far we have one function, but then we're pretty much going to do the same thing for all of our functions or all the things we want to do, like to add a user, things like that. You could also delete a user. It's just looking for a different function. So now I'm going to run my service, right? So to run your service, the way you run it is you go to the file that has the function prototypes. If you run it on the implementation, it's not going to run. You see, it's going to crash. Exactly. It's going to show you the weird errors. We don't want to run that. We want to run this. So then we're going to run it. And then we wait for it. And then we're going to click this file here. We want to run our service.svc service, right? We want to run that service. So I'm going to click that. You see, now it's running. And it's running on this URL. So I need to copy that URL because I'm going to need it in order to bind or connect my client or my website to that URL. Then I'm going to right click here on practical for website. And then I'm going to say add, and then add a service reference. Where is it? So basically, I'm going to add a reference to my service. So I'm going to reference my service, right? And I need an address or a URL for that. And then I'm going to paste that URL as it is. Then I'm going to click go. After I click go, it's going to show me the service that's the methods that are found. You see operations, the methods that are found. So far, we only have one, add product. And then I can give it a name. And you see that it says namespace. Remember, C# is a combination of C++ and Java. It took many traits from, and you see I even use things from Java, and also from time to time things that are similar in C++. So you see we had namespaces in C++, right? So this is the namespace. So I'm just going to remove that one there. I'm just going to call it namespace. It's going to be service reference. That's the name of the namespace. That's the name. Basically, this method is found within that namespace. I can't call this method without you saying I'm using this namespace. So I'm going to click OK, and then it's going to load. Wait, I opened the wrong. Yeah, I'm doing the wrong. Yeah, sorry for that. I opened the wrong project. Yeah, damn. All this time I didn't know, but I opened the wrong project. So let me do this. So I'm just gonna copy this implementation, right? It's fine. I'm just gonna copy this. Okay, I'll just copy only the implementation because I don't want to type it again. So the implementation is still the same. I just opened the wrong project. Come on, why is it refusing to scroll? Okay, so copy, and then I'm gonna close this. I don't know. I'm opening the wrong one. I need to go here because if you notice something, the pages that we're missing, yeah, you see on am I opening the right one? You see, now I'm confused. Oh yeah, it's this one. Because I remember I had created the login page, right? I think also the logout, so this is the one. And I need to open its service. So it's basically the same template, right? It was just something that I was fiddling with before I made this video. So I had checked out that template a bit before I made this video. And I see I coincidentally named it the exact same way. So that's why I thought I was doing the right thing. I was using the right files, right? Or I would open the right project. So there it is. I also called it the same thing here. Yeah, nah. iService1.cs. Mm, oh no, I opened the right one. Mm, now I'm confused. Did I open the right one? Okay, it seems like I'd opened the right one. So the ones that I hear, I'd opened the right one. So I hadn't, but then I did create log register. Where's register? How come I can't find register page here? Oh, it is there. Oh, I thought it wasn't there. Okay, my bad. Oh, we had opened the right thing. So I think I need to delete the ones on the desktop because now that's gonna confuse me between which one is which. Yeah, so we're on the right track. Let me rerun it again. The service application and try to and continue where I left off. Yeah, because it was supposed to be empty. Okay, there we go. So I'm gonna have this, and then that's the method. We have one, which is fine. And then there's the implementation, right? I want to double check something. Did I put in the role or the type for each user, right? There's different types of users, right? Okay, I did. So that's fine. So let me rerun the service application. Okay, it should be running, and then how come I don't see? Oh, there's the register. So I'm a bit blind, eh? I didn't see the register. So we'll need to do the login and stuff, right? So now I'm gonna click on my project name, right click and say add a service reference, so, right? Basically a reference to my service application. And then it's gonna be stored, that reference will be stored under a namespace. Okay, not what I was going for. So I'm gonna copy the URL of where my service is running, right? It's running on localhost on that port number, and this is the service, right? Remember, this will reference basically the function prototypes, right? The header file. And then you see it says that it found the service or services at that URL. Then I'm gonna click OK. It says it's already there. I don't see it though. Okay, so let me do this. Let me call it service reference one then. Okay, let me call it this. P04 service reference, right? We need to remember that name when you're using the namespace. Why did it just log out? Go out, I mean. Okay, so it's loading. So there's our P04 reference, right? Remember P04 and the name of the project, right, is still it technically still a thing, a namespace on its own, right? So let's go back here. They tell you how to even use it. So to use the client variable to call operations on the service. So to call the methods inside your service application, you need to declare it exactly like that. Okay, you can give it a different name, but then they typically use client. And then they say always close the client. They say don't forget to close the client. So to close that connection, but then you don't have to, you can get errors sometimes we don't have an understanding on that. But we'll try closing it. So when you click on the if you check something, right, if you click on the pages.spx, it shows you the HTML, which we're gonna treat as like the front end, right? That's the client. We're gonna treat that as like the client. And then if I expand this, there's going to be two files, which shows me the actual back end, which is the one called register.spx.cs, That's going to be my backend code or the server side code. Then the designer is how it looks on design. Basically, when you run it, how the HTML will look. You could also see the design here by navigating to the bottom here and click on design. It's going to show you how the HTML will look when it's on the page. You see, this is how it's going to look. And then you can switch back to source code. The design is important, for example, when you have a button like this, right? And you want to write implementation for it. Remember in Informatics 1A and 1B, we had Visual Basic, right? To write implementation for a button, how would you do it? Agree, you go this side and then you go to the form and then you double tap or double click on the form, right, on the button so that you can write code for that button. The exact same thing you're doing in Informatics 1A and 1B would do that. So you must switch to design, look for the button you want to write implementation for. Make sure it's an ASP.NET button. So if it's a normal button, the HTML button, you need to remove it. You need to change it, or else you won't be able to double click it. So I'm gonna double click it. You're gonna get some nostalgia feeling, right? You see, this is what we're doing in Informatics 1A and 1B, where we double click. So anything that I write here is it's basically code that will be executed when the button is clicked. So if I go back to my ASP.NET and I switch back to source code, you see that it now has an on click, meaning that when it's clicked, call this method, that method's implementation or the code inside that method. And remember the run at server, it allows us to run at the server, meaning run it at this back end. This is what we call the server, the back end, or the behind the scenes, right? So this means this button can be accessed and can be run on the server side. But then can we access or run our thing, our inputs, right? Remember, when we get this information, we need to be able to we need to what is this? We need to be able to get the value for that for the values that were entered by the user. How do we do that? If you check everything, right, it doesn't have an ID. We can't reference it. We can't access it with no ID. Look at this ASP.NET. It has an ID. And if you look at the back end, there's the button, right? BTN register, BTN register, same ID. So even the LBL response, it has an ID. That's how we're going to reference it. We're going to use the ID to say, go to that thing or that HTML thing with that ID and get the value of that input or that thing on the HTML side. So we reference things on the HTML sides using the IDs. And we need to make sure that we allow these things to be run or executed on the server side, basically our back end. So I'm going to create an ID for each. So I'm going to say ID is equals to, and then don't forget the run at so that I can access. So let me show you what happens if you don't put the run at. And then I say first name, right? That's the ID that I gave it. And then this was supposed to be class is equals to. And then I gave it that ID, right? But then I can't access it on my server side because I didn't say run it server. So if I say first name, it's going to say, what is this? It does not exist. You see, it's going to say it does not exist in the current context. So it doesn't exist at all. So I need to make sure I tell it that allow this thing to be run on the server side. So run at server. So I'm gonna put this in all of them before I give them IDs so that I don't forget. Come on. And then remember, you only put on the things you're trying to access. Remember, these input fields are where the user is going to enter their information, right? So I want to access that information. And then this selects they select statement here. I'll need to also give it an ID. I'm going to call this, give it an ID of user type, meaning the type of user, right? And then now I can give IDs for the other ones. So last name, I need to give it an ID of just last name. Last name. And then ID of which input is this? Phone number. So I'm just gonna call this phone, and then email I'm just gonna call it email. Oh, come on. Email, that's the ID. And then ID is equals to password. And then this ID will just be confirm. So that'll be confirm password. In short, I'll just call it confirm to make things easy. So now how do I get the values from those inputs? So each of these inputs, you use the ID, right? So you use the ID first name. You see now it shows, right? It shows that it is an actual thing. And it tells that it's an HTML input text. Basically, it's the HTML where you're gonna input text into, which is exactly what we're referencing. So first name, you call the dot value um, property, right? To get the value of that ID of that input, the thing with that ID. And then we need to store it inside a variable, right? So I'm gonna create a, remember it returns a string, everything that's inside the input, it returns a string. So I'm gonna create a variable and I'm gonna call it str first name is equals to. So I'm always gonna prefix it with str so that if I happen to name it this exact same name, like first name, that str will make it unique and different. They don't complain. So what's the next thing is the last name. Let me show you what I mean by confusing. Remember, the ID I've called it last name, but I'm also declaring a variable called last name. So if I do this last name dot value, they have the same name. It gets confused. Like which one is which? I'm confused. So now it starts thinking, oh, this last name you mean this string. So that's why I tend to prefix with str to make it unique, so that it knows the differences. So you see, now I get the value from that input with that ID last name. So where's that input? There it is. I get its value, whatever the user has typed. It's called value. You call just so called value, and by default it returns a string. If you want to get things like char or number or integer or age, something like that, you have to cast. So you'll see that when it comes to this, right, the user type. Oh, okay, I'm doing the wrong thing. Yeah, I'm at the wrong. You see, my brain is so far. Like I'm so ahead. I'm like, okay, I know I need to do register and things like that. Register, we're not there yet. I didn't create the method yet inside of my Safe's application. My bad for that. But then we're just gonna continue here. I was still on add product because we're trying to dynamically populate the products. Yeah, this is a messy video. Sorry about that. So we need to be able to add the products, right? So in order to add the products, remember that if I run this, right, to add the products, basically it's gonna look similar to my register page. There's gonna be input fields whereby I type in things like the image, the name of the product, the description, the price. It's gonna be like that, right? So it's gonna be similar to my register page. So basically I'll just copy everything inside the register page. Login, remember I haven't defined the login yet. So it's gonna be everything that's on. I'm gonna use this template, right, to structure my add product page. And I need to add it as an option at the top there. So that means I must go back to my master page and then look at the list items. Let's go down and look for the list items. There it is. So I have home, menu, about, register, login. We're also gonna need logout, right? So I'm gonna copy this and then I'll just call this one add product, right? The page will be called add product, and then the option will be called add product. There we go, right? Simple as that. And then I'm gonna right click and add a new page. And then add web form with master page because I've already been using it for a long time. So it's now there. I don't need to always click on new item. So web form with master page, basically with the base class. And I'm gonna name it the exact same way I named it there. Add product. I don't need to put .spx, it's gonna put it for me. Add product, click OK. There's the master page. Then click OK. Then there we go. And then register page. So it's gonna mimic basically everything that's inside the register page. It's just that we're gonna change a few things, right? So I'm gonna extract this section, all of it. There's certain things that we won't need. Remember, that's how you make your code, right? You always borrow sections from other pages to create everything. So I'm gonna auto align everything. And then remember, every time you copy and paste, right? That ASP.NET button, you must drag and drop a new one, or else it's not gonna run. That's just how it is. It's peak. So we have, let me zoom out a bit. It's just that my laptop screen is a bit small. So what are the different things that we need from the user? Remember now, this is no longer called register, it's add product, because we want to add the product. So for now, I won't worry about showing the add product page only if you're a manager, blah, blah, blah. We are not there yet. We'll do the session variables when you're there. So basically, when you log in as a user, you should see different options at the top than when you log in as a manager. There should be different options. So I have first name. I don't want first name, right? Remember for our, if I go back here, we need image, name, description, and price. So the first one is going to be image. So the ID, I'm just going to give it image, and then I'm gonna say enter product image. Enter product image, which is going to be the URL, right? That's pretty much the product image. And then ID name. And then here I'm going to say enter product name. So enter product name, right? So let me zoom in a bit so that you can see. Yeah, enter product name. Then the next thing is a description, right? So ID, I'm going to call it, I'm going to give it a description ID. Or the ID description. And then here I'm going to say enter product description. Enter product description, right? And then we're just changing a few things, right? And then removing other things that we don't need. So the last thing is the price. Yeah, so this is a very easy one, right? We didn't put in a lot of things. It's just a simple one. So ID is, I'm just going to give it an ID of price. And then I need to change this from email because I'm not getting an email. I'm just going to change to plain text. I'll cast to the integer, to an integer, right? But because I think you can, I think you can say numeric if I'm not mistaken. But then I'm just going to make things simple. I'm just going to make it text. And then enter product price, the price of that product. And then I don't need these two divs, right? The password one, confirm password, and the password one. And this div with, let me select it. So it ends there. So I don't need that div too. So I'm gonna delete that. So that label, this label, right? Remember everything that's ASP.NET, ASP related, you need to drag and drop it again. So I need to go back to my toolbox and then drag and drop. And then I'm gonna give it the same ID, LBL response. It must by default have no text. And then I'm gonna delete the bottom one, which is the old one that came when I copied. Then I'm gonna drag and drop another button because that's just how ASP.NET is. It wants you to drag and drop again. And then the class is btn box, cut, paste, so that you can style that button. And then delete the bottom one, and then give it an ID. So it's btn add product. That's the ID I'm gonna give it. And then it's going to be have the text add product, meaning we should add the product. So register and let's register page. We'll go back to it later. So now I can switch to design because I want to double click this button so that I can write code for that button. So I'm gonna switch to design and then scroll down, and then there's the add product button. Double click. So there's the button. So everything that I write within this button will be executed when this button is clicked. This is an on-click event handler. We are handling that on-click event. And then remember our service, in order to connect to it, we need to instantiate it like this. So copy this, go back here. You don't have to necessarily declare it outside of all methods, right? We're just declaring outside of all methods because we might use it in other methods, right? But then in my case, I'll just do this and then declare it in right there, right? But then it's going to complain because it doesn't know what is service one. What do you mean by that? So we need to include and tell it we are using this service reference namespace. But then remember what I said, your project name, your project, right? Your project name is going to be used to create another namespace, as you can see here, namespace practical04 underscore website. So before you can add that service reference, and if you check here, isn't the service reference under practical04 website? Yes, it is. So that means this namespace, it's within that namespace. So if I want to include this service reference namespace, I need to say it's a part of that practical4 website namespace. So how do I do that? I'm gonna say using p04.website namespace dot within that namespace, use the other namespace, which is this service reference namespace, and then enter. So now I'm using that service reference. And then now you see the error will go away. So now it knows what I'm talking about when I say service one, because I'm now using the namespace of my service reference. And if you check here, right, remember you can always go to the definition. Okay, it doesn't want. Okay, it makes sense because the definition is on the service application. And then like they said, always close. So, but they say don't forget to close. So I'm gonna say dot close, right? I must not forget to close after using it, right? So this client variable, right, or this client instance, I'm gonna use it to call the methods on my server side. So remember we created IDs here. So I need to make sure you always save, right? On the top there, you need to save all so that you don't have any asterisks next to page names, right? So these are my inputs, right? They're not a lot. The IDs is image, name, description, and price. So I'm gonna go back to my back end, then I'm gonna store those, get the values, right? So all of them are strings, right? Because it's text. But then the only except for one exception, the price needs to be an integer. We'll see how to handle that. So I'm gonna say string and then str image is equals to, remember we prefix the str with str image so that it doesn't get confused. Am I referring to my variable or to the ID of my HTML of my HTML of the IDs inside of my HTML. So image, now it knows, okay, you're referencing the HTML side. So you go to that input to that ID, get its value or what is inside that input. And then string str name is equals to name dot value. And then string str description is equals to description dot value. And then the last one is a price, which is an integer. And I can't say price again. I have to use int price so that it knows the differences between the variable and the HTML ID. So it's equals to price, right? Which is fine, dot value. So this value, like I said, return the string by default. It's like you can't convert the string to int. You're saying you're trying to initialize the integer, this integer to a string, which makes no sense. You can call the conversion function, right? I can go to my convert class. It's called convert. It's the convert class, right? There it is. It's a convert class which has static methods that you can call to convert. They always start with TO, capital T. TO meaning to, followed by the data type that you want to convert to. So dot TO to int. So there's multiple integers. To uint is unsigned. This is an unsigned int, but then it's 32 bits. Unsigned int 64 bits, which is basically a long, unsigned long. So I want the 32 bits. That's the normal integer. It's actually 32 bits. So I'm going to use int 32. And then I'm gonna paste that string there. So now I have everything that I require to pass to call that function inside inside of my service application, right? So now I can remember I need to store the answer, and remember it returns an integer. You can just say int, right? It's up to you. I'll just use var. It can pick it up for me. I don't have to worry about data types. So var, this will be the response from the server, right? It will return a response. Then I'm gonna check, is it the integer one or integer -1 or the integer 0? So is equals to client variable, right? Dot access one of the methods from my server side, which is add product. So this add product, it takes in a image, so str image, followed by the name, str name, followed by the description, str description, followed by the price, which is int price, and then semicolon to terminate the statement. So this is what we have so far, right? So let me zoom out a bit. So this should be fine. So this is what we have so far. So we calling from our client, which is us. We are calling the method on our server side called add product. Then we pass in the information that we want to add to the database. It will go and look at the implementation of that function, which is this. Try to get that user with those with that product with those details. If the product is null, it means that we can add. Then we add all pass initializing to the parameters that we passed. Remember, in stock, we set it ourselves to 1. And then that's pretty much it. Then now all I have to do is just be fancy now, just look at responses. So if response, remember, you can always use dot equals method or just two equals sign. So this time around, I'll just use the equals method. So if my response is equals to 0, then I know everything went well. Remember, if it's equals to 0, that means everything went well. So that means everything went well. Then I can notify the user so that the user, you can't click a button, nothing happens, right? So I'm gonna use my label. That's where the label comes in place. Then I'm gonna say dot for color. For color basically means the text color. If you normalize reading the documentation, C# and Java, right? Any function or anything you call, it has a sort of like Java documentation, right? So it has documentation on what that thing does. It says it gets or set the foreground meaning the color of the text. So I want to change the color of the text to, you don't have to remember what color it is, just type the name that you want. If everything went well, I want a light green, and I want a light green color, right? It makes sense to have a light green color. So light green. So you just type the color you're looking for, light green, and then it's gonna appear. So there's light sea green, then there's light green. I don't know about light sea green, I'll just choose light green. And then LBL response. Now I set the text for that label. What text should it show? It should basically show that you've successfully added the product. So the user needs to get a response. And then remember, there's no redirection here. We're just adding products to the tables, to our product table. And then my else if response dot equals, if it's equals to 1, remember, if it's equals to 1, the product already exists. If you check the implementation in the service application, product already exists. So just like the robot, you're going to change the color text to red for danger. So dot foreground color is equals to red. You can choose, I think, thing is, I don't see the colors now. I think Indian, any red color should suffice. I'll just choose the default red. And then LBL response dot text, its text should be product already exists. It should be a clear error so that the user knows what happened. The user needs to get a response. And then else if, the last one, if the response was equals to -1, not me pressing many things. If it equals to -1, then some error in the database occurred. Some error in the database occurred. So here I'm just gonna, since I don't know what to do, right? I don't know how to phrase the error. Remember the color is going to be red. I'm just gonna say LBL response dot its text and just say let me just say internal server error, right? Okay. I don't even know what to write there, but I think that's an error that makes sense. So that's all you have to do to add the product. That's it. And then we're pretty much gonna do the same thing for login, register. We're always gonna have a service one client, and before we have the service one client, we need to say we're using that namespace. The service reference namespace is part of practical for website namespace of my project names namespace. So I need to do that, so use that dot to say it's part of that. So let's try and run and see whether or not this thing is gonna crash. Okay, I forgot to change my product's name with the prices. Let me show you. The thing is still in dollars, yeah. So let's change this to rands, right? These prices. So I need to change them to rands. So where's my products menu, right? So menu, I want the HTML, so that's why I'm clicking there. So the pizza, right? So this is a very tricky thing. I need to actually go to the HTML, my template, and open it so that I can copy from the template. Because if I have to open Visual Studio to copy the product prices and the product name, okay, I don't want to do that. I want to open it, right click, open inside Notepad++. And no. So what I would do is I'll just change the prices here, right? It's quite a lot of products, right? So this is our menu, right? So I'm just gonna change the prices here. I must not forget to change it also inside my Visual Studio ASP.NET pages, right? So let's say delicious pizza is 98 rand, right? And then delicious burger is 69. Remember, I'm using integers, right, to store the price. You could use a double or a decimal or a float, that's up to you. Delicious pizza, let me say 1119 here. And then delicious pasta, 78. I'm just choosing random values. I just want it to so that it has rands there. Remember, you don't enter the R, you enter the rand, the integer, not the R. So here, fries, let's make it 55 bucks, right? This thing just never ends. And then it's pizza, right? Let's say it's a big, large pizza, expensive one, so 239. And then tasty burger. Um, what value? 99. I don't even know what numbers would make sense here. I'm just coming up with the random values. 80 rand. And then here it's gonna be 90. Yeah, and then that's pretty much it. We are done. So now we can use this HTML to copy and paste the products names and the prices, right? So that we can edit inside our database. How do you know the image? Where do you find the image? Let me show you. If I scroll down, the image is here. This is what we call the image. You see it's within double quotes. So that's why I made it a string, the image name or just the image. So I'm just gonna copy this as my image. Then there's the description and everything, right? So now we can run our project. Yeah, the menu will deal with that when you're dynamically populating, right? For now, I want to add the products to my table. We'll get to dynamically populating. So add product. So there's my add product. Why is the button that long now? That's weird. That's fine. I don't have time to be fixing the subtle things. So I'm gonna go back here and copy this image name as my image, right? Go back here. That's product image one, right? And then I'm gonna scroll down, go back to my this, and then that's the product name. So I need to do this over and over, right? So you're just gonna have to bear with me. I wanna sh I need to be as raw as possible. I can't just start showing you the table and the data is already there. That'll be unfair. I mean, I could have copied that code, right? I could be lying to you. So I need to write it from scratch so that if we face errors, we face them together. So it's 98 Rand, right? So try to add, let's see if we face an error. Okay, so no error was faced, right? You see, it says successfully added the product. But then there should be a space between, I need to put another line break, which is fine. I'll put it after. So there's another line break that needs to go there. So we did successfully add the product, right? And trust me, after extensive experience of coding, I know it did add. We'll check the database. I'll show you that it did add. Then I'm going to scroll down. We are moving to the next image, right? You see, the only thing about these images that change is the F1 to F2 to F3 to F4. So you see, the only thing that's unique is this two. So I don't have to copy the whole thing. I just keep changing that. I just keep incrementing by one. So from F1 to F2, right? So I just keep incrementing by one. That's the name. The description is actually the same. That's one thing I've noticed. So I'll just cut this and then make it unique. Um, and just say this is the best burger you've ever you've ever tasted. Then 69 Rand, right? That's the price that I set there, 69. We add, so it did successfully add, right? To show you that it did successfully add, I'll try to run this again. I should get an error that the product already exists because this is the same product. So let me run. You see, product already exists. So we are on the right track. And then scroll down. Now the image is F3. If you pay attention, it is F3. If it was unique, it shouldn't be unique. There should be a pattern with the image names. That's one thing I've noticed. The people who do templates, they usually make them similar, right? The price is 119, and then this is delicious pizza. This is the best pizza you've ever tried. I'm just coming up with unique product descriptions, right? Oh, I made a mistake. Damn. I forgot to change the image to F3. You should try not to make this mistake. So let me show you, let me go to my service. I just know at least I'm just quick with it. I just picked it up quickly. So I need to change that. So I need to go directly to the product table. So I right click on prod on my I expand the tables folder. Then I right click on the table that I want, and then I say show table data. Basically, the information that has been added to the table. There it is. So you see F2, that's a problem. It should be F3. When you try to dynamically populate this will be a problem. So let me change that to F3. There we go. And then if I try to refresh, there's F3, right? So it did change right there. Make those changes. So like I said, you see, it was adding the whole time. So I need to go back here, rerun my, and then rerun my website. Yeah, don't make that mistake of forgetting to change the image names. If you feel like you're gonna make the mistake, just copy and paste the image every time. Because as you can see, I made a mistake there. So always update your service reference if you made changes to your service application. So I'm just gonna update. I didn't I did make changes, but then it's not like I added a function. You only update the service reference if you've added a new function. And then this should be F4. We are now on F4. We are done with this. We should be now on F4. So I'm going to scroll down to F4. As you can see, it's F4. And then it's delicious pasta. And then I'm just going to copy this. And then I know it's called delicious pasta, right? So, and it's 78 Rand. So 78 Rand, delicious, it's pasta, right? Then product description is that, yeah, delicious pasta. 78 Rand. Image is F4, perfect. Add product, successfully added the product. You could change the green, right? It shouldn't be light green. You see, I made a mistake. It shouldn't be light green. It should be green, like that bold green. If it's light green, you can barely see it, right? That's the problem. Before I forget, images should increment by 1, so F5 now. And then scroll down. This is basically how you're gonna add you see, F5. This is how you're gonna add the products. French fries, 55 Rand, right? So it's French fries, 55 Rand. And the product description is the same. So I'm just going to leave it as it is. But then remember it's F5. And then add the product, successfully added the product. And then scroll down, F6, 239. So F6 is delicious pizza again, F6. So they should be on my options, right? Let me do this. Yeah, there should be delicious pizza. 239. Let me just double check. Delicious pizza F6. There's F6 239. Perfect. Add product successfully added. And then scroll down. F7 tasty burger. F7 tasty burger. And then it's going to be 99 bucks. And then add successfully added the product. And then this thing just doesn't stop. F8, and then F8 is still tasty burger, but then different price, 80 bucks. So I'm just gonna give it a unique name, right? The best, the best burger in the whole world, right? It's just a product description. It doesn't have to be true. You just come up with something to make the products unique, right? So F8, damn, this thing just goes on and on and on. F9. So F9, delicious pasta. Is it pasta or pizza? It's pasta, right? 90 bucks. And then I'm just gonna give this one this thing of my favorite pasta of all time. Something like that, right? It's 90 bucks, right? Yeah, it's 90 bucks. F9, perfect. And then add. So it's not supposed to be light green, right? The color. So we added the products. That's fine. So the products are now there in our tables, in our table, right? So now I can just remove that, minimize that. So now we can just dynamically populate the products, taking the information from the database. Before we do that, we need to create a function that gets all the products. You see that this thing is a pattern. The SQL statements that you run, right, are actually the same. So here you should get all the products, right? Remember in Java, you have what you call an array list. Even the list, there's a list, right? It's also there. It also, remember I say C sharp is sort of like the child of Java and C++. Excuse me. It's sort of like the child and is the child of Java and C++. So C++ and Java act as like the parents, right? So most of the things you see here are similar in C++ and Java. So I'm going to return a list of product, right? And then the function will be called get products. in plural, semicolon. I don't need to pass in anything. It just returns the products. Then I'm going to create another operation contract, which just returns one product, right? It's going to be called get product, which takes in an ID for the product. So this get product, right, this is where we'll do the about product page. So that when you click on each product, you can get more information on that one unique product. And then obviously, since we have new functions here, I need to scroll at the top and go under the squiggly red line and click show potential fixes, and then double click implement interface. After double clicking, it's going to add the two functions that have not been implemented. So let's start with our get products, right? Remember, always write SQL statements. So I need a list. So I don't want var. I want products, right? So I don't want one variable. I want something that's going to be dynamic, which is like a collection, a list. So I'm going to use dynamic and say prods. I'm going to call them prods and then run SQL as always. And now we won't say dot first dot default because we don't want the one value. I'm just going to leave it as it is. So to get our products, remember that variable in stock. It comes it comes it's going to come in good use here. So from P in my db dot products table, right? Where, so we're going to do a condition that needs to be met, where P dot ID, so not ID, dot in stock, if the in stock is equals to dot equals to 1. So return all the products that are in stock. So you see, that's the beauty of in stock. I don't have to look at is it the pro I could just say from, I could just do this, right? It's gonna return the product. I could just say from P in DB products, right? Select P. I could do that. Same thing. It's just that the in stock just helps me in the future, right? Just in case I have multiple, it's like imagine like a real world application. Obviously, I'm going to have multiple products. Some will be in stock, some won't be in stock. That's why I created the in stock variable. And then I'm going to select P, meaning select those products. Where any product that has in stock equals to 1, select it, meaning that's going to return multiple products. That's why I created a dynamic variable. And then since I'm going to need to return a list, right, I need to create a list here and instantiate it. So a list of products, I'm going to say, call it products in plural, is equals to new list. Remember array list in Java? It's similar to that. And then at the end of the day, I need to return this, but then it's fine. So remember, this will also return the products, right? Do you know why I create this array list? Because I want to select which information I want to get back for all the products. I don't want to get even the in-stock variable. What am I going to do with in-stock that side? There's nothing I'm going to do with in-stock. So that's why I create this array list. If I didn't have to create that, then it will be fine. I'll just say return prods. It'll be fine. And then I'm done. I would have solved my problem. So what I'm going to do is these products that are returned, I'm going to check if it's null. Always check because they might not exist. If it's equals to null, then that means they don't exist. That means I have a problem. So for me to solve this, since I'm expecting to return something that's a list, I can't return integers, right, or strings. I'm expected to return a list of products. So what I would do is I'll just say return null. So just return null if there was nothing. Just give back the client who's calling this method, give them a null if the products were not there. But then if the products were there, then I can go through each of the products. So there's this thing called for each loop that you guys have been using. Remember, each and every single thing that's here, it's a product. So therefore, I'm going to say product. I'm just going to store inside the variable P. In what? Prods, right? Remember, we use prods because that's the variable that stores the products we got from our database table named product. not these products. This is a list that's empty, right? Remember that. Then now this will give me everything. This product, right? Remember now I can say p dot, I can get the description for the product and things like that. But then there's something that I do not want here. So how do I extract only the things that I want? I create a temporary variable, temporary product. So I'm gonna say var, I'm gonna say temp product or obj product. Let me say obj product is equals to new product, right? And then this product will store only the things that I want from this product P, each product P that I'm getting from my products. So I'm going to say obj product dot image. Obviously, I need the image. I'm going to use that to display, to dynamically populate my products, right? So I need the image is equals to P dot image is equals to the image from this current product, right? Remember, I'm getting all the products here inside products variable, and then I'm going to store each and every single product inside P. So what I'm doing is I'm saying take the P value of image and store it inside this temp object or temp product that I've created. So basically I'm extracting the specific information that I want from product P. I won't return everything inside P, product P. And then obj product dot its name, set it to be the product, the P name, right? The name, I need it. And then what else do I need? I need the description. So dot description is equals to P dot description. And then object product dot price is equals to P dot price, because I also need to display the price, right? But then I do not need, there's something that I do not need here. I do not need the in stock. So I'm not gonna say is equals to P dot in stock. I don't need in stock. But there's something that I need, which is very important, the ID. Remember, we need to be able to get the product by ID. So I need to also get the ID. So I need to say obj product dot ID is equals to P dot ID. So now I've gotten this. Now I'm fine. So if this object, temporary object, obj product, has only these things that I'm looking for: image, the name, the description, the price, and the ID. I don't need the in-stock information. Then I'm gonna say, now remember, I'm getting one product at a time, and I need to add it to my list, or in terms of Java ways, array list. How would you add to a list? You type in the list name products.add. Simple, right? And then you add that object, obj product. So I've added into my array list. So every time I'm going to create a temporary project or product, I mean, and then extract only this information that I want, then add it to my list. Then once this for each loop is done, right, then I can return my array list. So I can return the products. And then that's pretty much it. That's all you have to do there. Let me just double check. Okay, it's not even showing the time. So that's pretty much what you have to do. And then we're gonna back go back up to our get ID. So our get ID, it's similar to get products. The only difference is that I'm not gonna use dynamic, since I'm expecting one product. I'm gonna use var for variable, one variable. Dynamic, just think of it as like multiple variables. So this will be prod is equals to run SQL statement from P inside my database table products, where what that product's ID is equals to the ID that I'm getting via the parameter. Then select that product for me. But then don't return all the products. I want only one product. So select the first product or the default, which is just going to be null. So I'm going to check if what is stored inside this prod. If prod happen to be null, that means the product does not exist. So I could just return null to say that the product does not exist. So I'll check for null that side. I'll test for null, since I'm returning things like null and the products. If I was returning integers, I was testing for integers, right? It only makes sense to do that. And then the same thing here for product. I don't want all the information inside product. So I don't even need the ID. So the only thing that I need, I'm basically going to redo this portion of code. But then remember, there's no multiple products, so I won't need to use the for each loop. So I only want specific information, so I'll create a temporary product. So we'll call it obj product is equals to new product, and then do that, and then I extract the information that I want. Remember, this prod will return the product that I'm looking for, and from that prod, I would select the specific information that I want, and then store it inside this temporary product, then return that temporary product. So obj product, obj, come on, product dot, I want, obvious, it's image, that's fine, prod dot image, and then obj product's name is equals to the prod that I got from my database, its name, right? And then obj product dot its description is equals to that prod I got from my database, its description, take its description. Then the last thing that we're gonna need is just the price, and then I'm done. So I don't need the ID and the in stock. That's why I'm doing this, right? If I needed everything, I was just gonna return prod. Always, always keep that in mind. So dot price is equals to prod dot price, and then I returned that temporary object with the one that has only the information that I require. If I return prod, it's going to return everything inside of the table. Do I really need everything in the table? No, I don't. So that's why I created a temporary object and then copied the specific information that I'm looking for, which is the image, the name, the description, and the price. Then I return that temporary product. And then you're done. That's it. That's all I have to do. And then we'll get to log in and register. You see login and register. It's typical the same thing as adding the product when you're registering. When you're logging in, it's similar. It's the same thing as getting the product. So I need to run my service.svc, my service. The erase is running. Then I'm gonna minimize this and then go back here to my website. And then always update when you add new methods. So I need to update my service reference. So now it has access to those methods that are there. If it didn't update, when you try to call those methods, it wouldn't know what they are. Keep that in mind. So how do we go about dynamically populating this thing? You should notice that there's a pattern here, right? Each product, let me see. Let me just double check something here. Okay, this is going to be a lot of code. Yeah, this was the wrong template. So the thing that I want you guys to see is a pattern, right? What code are we repeating multiple times for each product? Yeah, this is a lot of code, I don't wanna lie. So if you check, right, the thing that we're repeating, I think it's this, right? This, if you check, yeah, if you check this, we're repeating these divs, right? So these are going to be repeated multiple times for each product. Let me minimize them. Yeah, so you need to have a keen eye on this thing. Yeah, so you see, these are the things that are repeated. So if I maximize one of them, you see how long it is, and it starts here. So it starts here, goes down up until here, just before that one. So this is the code that's going to be repeated, right? So you take the code that's going to be repeated, right? And you copy it. So I'm just gonna right click it and say cut and cut. So basically cut one of these divs, right? Then you just delete the rest. Then you just create an ID to say you're gonna insert into this main div, those collection of divs, right? So it's going to be a tricky thing, but then let's do it. So I copied the divs, right? So now I know I need to minimize that, minimize this, minimize this, minimize that, minimize that, minimize that, minimize that, minimize that, minimize that. So you see, this is what if you look at this code, right, you can double check line by line. It's repeated These products are repeated. That's why we need to dynamically populate them. Don't repeat ourselves. Let's just write code that populates on its own. We write code that tells the computer to populate on its own. So how do we do that? We need to write the backend. So we copy one of them. So I'm gonna expand. Okay, I need to expand more. So I copy one of the divs, right? It starts from there, going downwards. There's just all this information. We need to copy it as it is. This is the wrong template that I chose, but then it's fine. You need to also be able to convert the hard templates. They won't make it easy, obviously. So this is the whole code that's being repeated. So you must look for a pattern, which div for each product is being repeated. So this is the one. So since it's the one, I'm gonna right click and cut. And then I delete all the other ones. Don't worry about it, just delete. So I need to create an ID for the div that contained these products. If I go back, which div contained this product is this one. This is the div that contained them. So, okay, this is why you don't undo, especially if you have a lot of HTML like this. So you see, this div is the one that contains all of these. So I'll delete all the information inside that div and then give that div an ID. Obviously, you need to be able to run it on the server side. So run it server side, give it an ID. I'm gonna say the ID that I'm gonna give it is I'm gonna say my products. That's the ID I'm gonna give it. And then on the backend side, so remember this is menu.aspx. How do we go to the backend? I need to look for menu.aspx. There it is. Expand. And then this is the back end, the first one. The second one is the design, how it looks when you run it on the browser. I want the back end or the server side code. So double click on that. And then remember, we need to use that namespace always in each page. It's very picky. You need to always say using that namespace in all of the pages. And then create the service one client again. Service one client. Client is equals to new service. So I created a client that links to my service one, which is basically my service application. As you can see, it's called service one. So I need to create a client that connects to that service. And then always close the client. So client dot close. Right? And then we're gonna have all of that code. It's gonna be messy, right? It's gonna be quite a journey. So let me paste the code. You see, there's all of the code. There it is. It's quite a lot, right? And then to remove all these necessary spaces, right? After pasting it like this, you can just Control Z to undo, which is going to remove all the extra spaces that were added when you pasted. So what I would do to make my life simpler, remember, I need to be able to store this into one string. All of this should be inside one string. So how do I do that? I use what I call a string builder. Remember Java? I could just also create a string like this and say, uh, I call it something, right? Let me say output. It's empty, right? And then I just start saying output plus or equals. I concatenate all the strings together, right? These divs all together. I could do that, but then I want to choose a better approach. I want to use a string builder. String builder. I'm gonna call it stream, right? New string builder. Don't worry about the errors. There's just that I don't want to lose the code that I've pasted. Obviously, you need to use the namespace that is a string builder. So I'm gonna hover over it and then click show potential fixes and then click the first one. Say using system.text. Double click and then the error should go away. This error is showing because of the code that follows it. So how do you add to a string to a string builder, right? Remember, I need to repeat this multiple times. Remember, this div that I've copied is for one product. So I need to repeat it multiple times. So I need to actually do this. I need to have a list of products because remember, it returns products. List of products, I'm going to call it products in plural, is equals to my client, so my service client dot call a function called get products from my server side. And then it's going to return a list of products, right? Cannot implicitly blah, 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 type. Okay, I don't know why it's doing that. So let me use dynamic, right? Let's see if that's going to fix it. Yeah. So let's just use dynamic to avoid any errors. You see why var and dynamic are very useful. You might not really know what's actually the correct way. So it actually returns, that list is actually an array. So it expects me to return prod array. So let's not get into that. Let's just use dynamic to avoid those issues. So you see I have multiple products. So I'm going to use a for each loop for each product. You could use var, but then I'll just use product here. I'll call it product, the temporary variable, in my products list or variable that returns the products. I'm doing a for loop because I need to do this for multiple products. Then I create a string builder, right? I append. Remember, there's an append function inside a string builder. Append, and then I need to make these strings, right? So I'm gonna copy line by line. That's why I say it's gonna be a lot of code, line by line. If you see double quotes, okay. Remember what I told you, if you see spaces, they just press Ctrl Z to undo the spaces. So if you see double quotes within double quotes, put a backslash to escape them. So backslash to escape, right? Done. And then I'm gonna append again, dot append. So to show you exactly how it is, I'm just gonna append line by line. It's not advisable because you can just write, you can do it in a different way, but then I'm just gonna write line by line so that you see that I just append all those divs into the string builder. Remember, it's going to do for each product. And then the next line is this one, cut, put it here, and then move this up a bit so that I can have an easier time with copying. And then append the next line. What's the next line? It's this div image box. If you have double quotes within double quotes, remember, if you have this extra spaces that I generated, press Ctrl Z to undo them. You see Ctrl Z and then undoes them. If you don't undo them, your thing won't dynamically populate the right way. Dot append. Right. You could use a string, right? Like I said, this one line, right, could be represented, like I said, you could just say output plus, come on, output plus equals. You could do that. I'm just using a string builder because there is a string builder. Why not use it when it's there? Why make my life difficult? Then comes the interesting part now. You see this part, okay, Control Z to undo those spaces and then escape that, escape this, then escape that, escape that. So you see, this is the image by default. I want this image to be unique for each product. How do I do that? I delete that, I remove the actual product name, an image name, right? And then I just put double quotes to divide it into two strings. And then I append the product name. So I just say plus the product. So I say product dot name, the name of the product, plus again. So now it's going to include source and then that opening double quotation mark. Then it appends the name of the product from my product inside my products table. And then it adds the closing double quote after the product name. Then it continues with the rest. So that's pretty much what you're going to do for all of the information that needs to be unique. The information that needs to remain the same, we leave it the same. So stream.append, and then double quotes. And then I'm going to put the div. Like I said, you don't have to do it line by line, right? You can just also add this div immediately after you copy another div. You can even have something like that, as many divs as you want. I'm just going to do it line by line so that you see it you can picture it in that way. You don't have to do that. Okay, I won't do it line by line. It's not necessarily when it comes to numbers. You see that there's those numbers that are very long. I don't want my code to be too long because of those numbers. So cut this, put it there, and then Control Z to undo the spaces, and then the double quotes, put backslashes to escape them. Remember, the escape character just tells the computer that, listen, this is not the closing ones. This is also not the closing one. There's the closing double quotes. So stream dot append, and then I need to put an H5 tag. So I'm gonna put this here, undo, and then you see this is not what I wanted, so I need to remove those spaces. So it needs to be like this, remove spaces again. You see, this is the product name. So I need to delete that name, two double quotation marks, and then put two plus symbols there. And then within here, I'm going to say the product's name. Wait, what am I saying? What, I did the wrong thing. It's product image, not name. Image, my bad. It's product image here. And then that's done. And then stream dot append. And then I need to, okay, let me do this in a smart way. Let me copy one thing at a time. Also, this is the description, so I don't need to actually copy this whole text. Remember, the description is unique for each product. So I'm just gonna put the closing tag here and then put two double quotation marks. And then I need to say product dot the description. Put it there in between this HTML text. And it's gonna put it for every single product. And then stream dot append, stream dot append, and then add this next div class, or this next div, copy, paste there. There's spaces, Control Z to undo. Okay. Oh, there's no spaces. Okay. So all I need to just remove that space there. And then escape to tell you that that's not the closing double quotes. Escape again. And then stream dot append. Right. And then I need an H6 tag. So H6, and then H6 tag, right? And then in between the H6 tag is the price. So remember, we must always put that R to show that it's rands. And then I'm gonna split this into two strings, so two double quotes like this. You see, these are now two strings. And then I'm gonna append in between them the product's price, dot price. So there's that R for rands and the product price. And then these two things are done. And then we're gonna need, this is important. You see this href here? We're not gonna fix that now, but then it's important because the href, it's like it's a hypertext reference link, right? It redirects to some web page, right? So the web page that we would want to redirect to will be the about product, right? Which is going to be about.aspx, right? For now, we don't have to worry about that. We don't have about product yet. But then I'm just going to put the name there so that I don't forget. I'm just going to put a comment here. Do not forget to change this for about product page. So I'm just going to put that there. And then stream dot append. Then append what? All of these things, right? There's quite a lot of things to append. You see this whole long line, you need to append it. And then all of these G's. So I'm gonna cut that. So that's why I say this template is somewhat difficult for beginners, right? So now I need everywhere where I see a double quote, I need to escape it, which is gonna be, you see that it's quite a lot of work. Escape, and then escape, then scroll that side, escape sequence, escape character, and then escape, again, escape, 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 Yeah, this was just a difficult template, but then some templates are easier to convert. But you should be able to do any template. Escape, and then escape, escape, the last one. And then everything is fine. Then we append the next stream dot append. Yeah, I think I need to make a third video. So now I'm gonna copy all these G's. Like I said, you don't have to like, so there's a second one, there's another G, which is this one. Then after that second G, there's this path, which goes up until that side. Okay, so it goes up until here. I know it's a bit weird how this thing looks, but then as time goes on, you get a hang of it. Control Z to undo the spaces, right? Because I saw that it had spaces. And then let me just double check something here. Hopefully I'd copied it the right way, hopefully. So hopefully I won't face any issues. Mm. Okay, so I'm assuming there should be a comma somewhere there. Let me see. Let me just double check something here. C29, right? Where is it? Okay, there it is. Okay, there's no space. It's just like that. So I'm gonna leave it as it is. Yeah, it's something that you need to be very, very careful, like be able to pay attention to details. And then escape. Okay. So yeah, that's fine. And then let me see if that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. And then I move on to the next line. Then I append the closing G's now, which is this is one, two. So I'm gonna have one, two, right? So one, two of these, and then two of these again, cut, and then one, two. Then now I have the 4. And then I need to copy the same path again. And then I'm gonna cut this, and then I paste it here. And then I'm gonna escape here, and then escape there at the end. And then obviously needs to be in the same line. Yeah. This thing, that's why I say this is the wrong template. This code is gonna be very long, especially the dynamically populating. Okay, so C, that's fine. And then I moved this to the previous line. So let me just, to speed up things, let me do this, right? And then do the same that side. Yeah, you won't have this type of templates. This is just a rare case one. So I'm gonna do this. And then there we go. Yeah, this is quite a long one. Okay, let me just double check if I don't have any error there. Okay, I don't have any error. And then stream dot append. That's quite a journey, man. And then copy this. I need 2 of these, and then I need 2 G's, 2 of these, and then we copy the next. Okay, we're almost done. Yeah, we're almost done. So this is like the last long thing to copy, and then the rest is just all these G's. Then copy. So this next one, I'll just append it in its own line, right? Because it's gonna be very long. So there it is. Control Z to undo the spaces, and then escape this, and then undo that, and then go toward the end there to escape that. Then that error is gone. Then we are left with all of these G's and divs, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy all of them at once, scroll down, right, and then cut them, right? Then put them inside one line. Like I said, this is like the rare case to have so many like this. And then now I need to do this. And then, come on. And then, because I don't want to make a mistake of losing track of how many G's are actually there and then end up missing my code. And this would be hard to decipher, like to debug. So I don't want to go through that process. So that's why I'm doing it in the most untidy way. Come on. And then there we go. Again. Yeah, this template was a lot of work. Imagine they gave you this thing for semester test too. Y'all will be cooked if you don't know what you're doing. Okay, this is quite a lot. So this should suffice. Let me put it in a separate line. So let me do another line here and just continue where I left off. Stream dot append, right? And then cut all of this. Right, and then put it in the Control Z to undo the spaces. And then do this. Yeah, you work extremely hard in informatics to be. That's why I generally don't like making these videos for informatics to be, because there's just a lot of work. And I still haven't covered logging in and session variables and registering. All of these things, I haven't covered them. So I'm still here trying to fix that. And then fix this, fix that, fix that. So we're almost there. Fix that. Okay, this one I'll just do this. These are the last few ones. Then do this. Okay, so we're actually done with the HTML, with the string builder, right? So we have pretty much all the things, right? The image, the name, the description, and the price. We haven't added the ID, right? Remember, we add ID when we're dealing with the about product page. So now I need to add so I need to convert this string builder to a string and then insert that whole string inside this div with this ID. So how do I insert it? Remember, I want to insert it as HTML. So I'm gonna say my div's ID, which I called it my products, my div's ID, and say dot its inner HTML. So the inner HTML, meaning the HTML inside, the inner meaning inside, right, should be set to what? To that string builder, but then convert it to a string. It's converted into one thing, which is just one string. And then I've said that this is now me dynamically populating the products. So let's see if we've made a mistake. If we've made a mistake, then I guess I just have to start it fresh on the side, because if I redo it in the video, it's gonna take long. Let's see if it's gonna crash or something's gonna go wrong. Okay, perfect. This is it's a rare thing. If you actually know what you're doing, yeah, it might work in your way. You see, there's everything. My favorite pasta of all time, the best burger in the whole world. Then there's the French fries, the 55 rand, and all the images, everything, and the prices that I put, everything is fine. Remember, we need to do the same thing for our home page, because look at the home page. Don't we have products? We do, right? So I'll do it for the home page too. So let me do that. Remember, I have the code now. I don't need to rewrite myself. What I'll do is I'll use a simple hack. I'll use the same ID for that HTML. So I'm gonna go that side to home page, and I'll look for the section that is the products, right? Come on, where are you? Order now, nope. Which section is that? Oh, this is the offer section. How come it's not showing me the minimize buttons on the left side? This thing. So there it is. So I need this div, right? So what I need to do is I need to click here. Come on. So I need to see where this div ends, right? Because if you don't believe me, it's the same div, you see. Filters, content. Okay, I want the one within, which is the row grid, okay. So the one within the row grid, which is actually this. So I need to go up, so let me cram the line number since I don't see the minimize option on the left panel. So I need to stop at 249 when I delete. So I highlighted this so that it shows me where's the closing div. So if I scroll down to 249, where's the closing div? Scroll down. You see, there's quite a lot. So I'm gonna scroll down, scroll. You see, there's quite a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of code. Scroll down. So there's the closing div. So just right before it, I need to delete everything. So from here, going upwards, remember we said 249. There's quite a lot of code. So that's why it's actually important to dynamically populate because now I won't have all of this code physically here. It will just be dynamically generated for me using a for loop. So let's be patient, scroll up. Yeah, because if I make a mistake of stopping and saying, okay, let me find a quicker way, I might make the mistake of deleting extra things. With ASP.NET Informatics 2B, you need to be very careful. For you guys, right, when you write semester test 2, you'll be given an ASP.NET application. It will be converted to HTML, to ASP.NET for you. I don't know. That's how it was when I did it. It might have changed, but then that's because you see how much time it takes for you to convert this thing. So, and you only have like around 2 hours or 3 hours. I think 2 hours or so. So obviously they're gonna give you a ASP.NET application where they've converted the template for you. So scroll up, we're almost there, 249, 249. That's where I should stop. 249, almost there. 260, 50, there we go. 49, there's 49 here, right? There's 49, I delete, perfect. So I deleted everything, right? You need to be very careful. I've experience in converting these things, so I can know where to stop. So I need to give it the exact same ID so that I don't need to change my back end code, right? I'm gonna call it my products again. So that you just copy and paste to make my life simple. So I just copy and paste this code, go up here, everything I need to copy and paste it. Obviously, I must import the string builder, right? Remember, it needs the string builder. So I need to go expand the home, and then I want the server side or the back end, and then put it under here. So remember, this is like the form when it loads, page load. When the page loads, it should dynamically populate. So I'm putting it there. I'm not putting it in a button. It doesn't know what product is because I didn't use the namespace. Dot practical for service reference. And then the string builder, it's using system.txt, using system.txt, and then error is gone, then perfect. So we've dynamically populated the menu page and our home page, our landing page, which is perfect because we didn't have to rewrite the code. You see, there's our product, 69 Rand, 119, 55 Rand, exactly as we expected, right? So I think that should be it for now for this session. I'll see you in the next video. I think okay, I don't think it's gonna be the last part also because there's quite a lot. It might be. I'm not promising anything, it just might be. So gonna do this and then let me end the session. See you in the next session.